So here's what you get from TH Custom Effects for their signal tracer injector pen. We have ourselves the PCB, which has already been pre-assembled. We have two sets of switches here. We have a pin that we'll use for our actual signal tracing. And we have two sets of power connectors, one being male and one being female. We have a hook that we can use for grabbing wires for getting a signal. And then we have a speaker here as an output device to make sure that the signal that's going in is coming out the way we intended. So let's do a assembly here real quick. First thing we need to connect is our little gator clamp here. So to connect our gator clamp, first thing we're going to do is we're just going to pop this out. So hooks down like this, we pull it out, and there we go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to solder a single wire to this gold trace and then feed it through the bottom of this piece. And now that we got it soldered in here, the spot where it's going down, make sure that lines up, and it should just press to fit in there. Oops, probably hopefully I actually had it in the right angle. There we go. There we are. So now we have a hook clamp here. All right, so now we're going to move on to the two power connectors. So for the two power connectors, we're going to want to untwist these to get to their leads. And we'll do the same with the other one here. And we're going to solder a positive and negative lead to both of these. All right, so for the connector here with the male pin, you want to make sure, typically your pedals are center negative, so you want to make sure that your center pin here has the two black wires going to it, and then the little pinhole here for the shield that actually gets your red wires, that's going to be your positive. And there's going to be two sets of wires apiece. One's going to be a short set, which is going to go to the other connector, and then you're going to have two really long wires, as long as you need them lengthwise for your projects that you anticipate on doing. And that one will actually go into the PCB of the pen. All right, so let's before we finish this up, make sure we take the back cap and stuff these wires in here first. And if all is good here, just twist it up. All right, and we have this cable set up. All right, let's hook up the other side. All right, and just note, just like before, you want to make sure that the ground is going into the center pin and that the hot ends up going to the shield because it's center negative. Also to note, do remember to put this down the wire set here before you start soldering these wires so that you can screw this in when you're done. All right, so now we have these connected, and now we will wire up the board with these wires as well as our hook and our speaker. All right, so now we have the power wires and the signal plugged in. We're using the strain relief holes here, which that's a really good idea. And then we come up from underneath and plug in here. So now we have to plug in the speaker. The power wire we're going to probably plug into right there, but the ground for the speaker, we could mate it to the one that's already there, this ground label, but as you can kind of see, the trace actually bops over to this hole here, so I might come in on that way. Anyways, let's solder up that speaker. Okay, so now we've put our speaker wires through the strain relief here and came up underneath the underside here. This seemed to work out pretty best for me. And there was a little bit of adhesive that they have that goes underneath that speaker that basically seals it to the PCB like so. And it's the perfect width, so that works out really, really good. So yeah, there's a little dime speaker there to output some audible signal. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to take these two switches here. They have a extra set of rows that we're not going to need, so we're going to trim off the one side on each of these switches. And then they go right here into that little set of 3 holes, and then right over here to this set of 3 holes. And then after we solder that in, lastly, we'll have to solder down this pin here for the actual probe. So let's do that. Okay, so now we have everything all soldered up. The brass point that's on the tip here, there's not a real good way to solder it on there except for just putting two blobs on the two vias that were there, and then getting them hot, and then using a set of tweezers, obviously, because you don't want to hold this with your finger, placing that pin right across it. And once it starts to cool down, it'll actually straighten things out due to the surface tension of the solder. So that's kind of nice. It actually works out really good. And then we have ourselves our two switches now soldered in here. So now we can test this guy out. So let's do some probing. So here we have a schematic for a pedal that I'm working on right now that we can use our signal generator on. I'm having a little bit of a problem, so the signal generator should be able to identify where the problem's coming from. So this schematic here is for our meat grinder fuzz, which should be coming out soon here on our store. And let's just go over a quick rundown of what's going on here. So we have our input stage right here, which then goes to a push-push amp frequency doubler, which then goes into a hard clipping stage, which then goes into a bridged detone stack, then to an output buffer, and then obviously our power supply is right here too. So the problem I'm having with this fuzz is I have obviously signal going in, and somewhere through here, signal is not making it out the other side. So let's use our frequency generator here, find out where the problem is coming from. Alright, so here's our fuzz pedal. And one of the things you want to note when you're trying to do pedal troubleshooting for signal is do make sure that you have your pots at least up to noon, if not higher. You don't want something like a gain pot, a fuzz pot, or especially the volume pot being set to 0, because that's going to naturally make sure the signal doesn't make it all the way through, or make it very hard for it to get all the way through. So right here we have everything turned up. And so first thing we're going to do is I have a 9-volt power supply, obviously with a battery just going to a clip here. And so we have our two pieces of our signal generator here for power. So we put the power side in, and then this is what we're going to plug our 9-volt into. So we plug that in, and now our signal generator is on. And it has a little blue LED, which is kind of nice as an indicator. And then we have our little gator clamp. So to do a sanity check to make sure it actually is working, if you just go signal in to signal out, I should get some noises. So it's making an oscillation that comes out of that speaker. If I flip that switch, I just get a pulse. I like using this because that gives me a high and a low frequency to measure against. And then if we flip the switch over here, it just gets louder. We'll work with the quiet one. So alright, obviously with itself, it's working fine. So what we're going to do first is, this is the injection. So we're going to go find the input line on our pedal and grab that. Alright, cool. So now we should be able to start probing and seeing where the signal dies. So first thing, the sanity check is make sure your bypass switching is actually doing what you're thinking it's doing. So it should be able to get to the input of your pedal. Oops. Alright, so we have signal coming in. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure it gets through that original buffer section. So let's see if it's actually getting up to the fuzz pot. Alright, definitely making it there, and obviously there's some amplification at that point. Alright, let's see if it is making it through the frequency doubler. So where is... that's going to come up to those diodes, so that should be over here. And this is on the low amplification, so that's doing a good job. Alright, so it's making it up through the frequency doubler. Let's see if it's actually getting up to the volume pot then. Alright. Okay, so it's getting up to the volume pot. Well, that doesn't leave us too many options here, so let's get to the end. And obviously here at the output, dead. Nothing. Alright. So I guess the next stage would be, are we getting through the decoupling capacitor C13? Let's probe that. Gotta find a good spot to probe that. Let's see, top of the 25 here. Okay, so she's making it out to there. Alright. Then is it making it out to the output capacitor C14? That'd be the top of 28. So that'd be here. Actually, no, I take it back. It'd be over here. Okay, we're getting a signal, but it's very faint. So we're definitely on to something here. So makes it up to C14. But is it making it out the other side? It is not really. So I suspect that resistor right there is blown or is shorted out on itself. So yeah, R28, which that's fantastic. That's the very last resistor in the circuit, is there's something wrong with that. So we're gonna have to desolder that resistor, and then we'll be fine. And we'll see what happens. Let's check it out. All right, so now we're back, and we got everything all hooked up. Just again, make sure we got signal coming out on the input. And we do. And at the output, it works. Sounds like I'm playing a game of Operation, but it is indeed working. So now we got signal coming out the other side. Alright, so there you have it. So just to let everyone know, TH Custom Effects sent us this signal tracer to us free of charge, though they did not really pay us or anything, so this isn't really like a sponsored ad or a sponsored review. Wanted to review this myself and show everyone the assembly, and so my thoughts and opinions on this are my own. And I'd have to say I like the tool. It helps out pretty good. It's a good price. It's small. It's efficient. It does the business. It's really good when you're trying to find signals through your pedal, making sure they're coming out the other side, which is usually the fault diagnosis that you're going to be dealing with from time to time when you're working on pedals. Is I got the sound going in, but it isn't coming out the other side. Where'd it break? So a tool like this is really good for that. Well, anyways, that's all for this video, and we will leave a link in the description below to where you can get this, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.